I'm the lead engineer on the Liferay Faces project. I'm a contributing author to the JSF2 reference. And I also represent the company on several of the standards committees for the JCP. There are other employees at Liferay that work on standards as well. I tend to hang out on the Java-based standards with the JCP, and I represent the company on Portlet 3, Servlet 4, a new one, MVC 1.0, and JSF 2.3. And a little shameless plug, I have a talk tomorrow afternoon, it's towards the end of the day, about Portlet 3, if you're interested in that. Have 5 developers on our team. We have Bruno Basto in Brazil, and then we have Kyle Steeman, Vernon Singleton, myself. We're based out of Orlando, Florida, and also Juan Gonzalez in Spain. On our support team, we have support engineers really around the world, but these are the 3 engineers who have been handling most of the issues of Tibor, Jolt, and Laszlo. One thing I've found over the years, especially with regards to doing development in Liferay, when I talk to developers, is they love to have choice. Developers, and Jorge was talking about this in the keynote, developers want to be able to use the technologies they want to use when they're building their applications. But sometimes there's so much choice we don't know what to do. It really can really make your head spin. And so I find this to be very good wisdom here. Anyone ever heard of David Neminger? He's our number 2 poster in the Liferay forums, just behind Hitoshi, but I think he's going to take over Hitoshi pretty soon. He tends to recommend using what you know, and I think that that's some sage wisdom, some good advice. Well, if you don't know which framework to choose if you're going to do a UI, why should you consider JSF? Why should you consider Java Server Faces? There are several reasons. One is that it's a standards-based technology, and you can see here over the years, starting with JSF version 1, then going to 1.2, 2.0, 2.1, 2.2. We're now formulating 2.3. This is a standard that's been undergoing development for many, many years. It's very stable and has wide support with vendors. Another reason you might want to consider JSF is because of facelets. And I think this just about says it all. This is a quote from Gavin King. Anyone have heard of Hibernate before? Hibernate or Scene? Gavin is the author of those tools. He said, I think Facelets is by far the best templating engine I have ever worked with. So if you like templating engines like FreeMarker or Velocity, I think you'll really like Facelets. It has a very nice, clean separation of concerns between the model, view, and controller as it implements the MVC design pattern. And it also has the benefit of abstraction. This is very important, and it's going to be very helpful for moving from Liferay 6.2 to Liferay 7. As many of you have heard, Liferay 6.2 utilizes our AlloyUI framework. And the AlloyUI framework, at least version 2 and also version 3, is based on YUI. Well, recently, Yahoo announced that they're not going to be doing active development on YUI anymore. And so what we're going to do in Liferay 7 is refactor and move to jQuery. So if you were to develop your portlets with Liferay Faces, then this is something that's going to be much less of a concern for you, much, much less of a concern. Because basically you'll be able to develop your applications, and the abstraction will insulate you from the JavaScript, so that when you move your applications from Liferay 6.2 to Liferay 7, it should be much, much easier than if you had any custom JavaScript. So here's an example. Another reason why you might want to use JSF is because of the HTML5 friendly markup feature. Here's an example where you can just have a plain HTML document for your portlet using typical HTML elements like form and input and so on. Here's an HTML5 type equal date right here. And one thing you might notice is the JSF namespace. So right here you can see that the value attribute is prefixed by a JSF colon, and the namespace is declared right up top right here. What this allows you to do is use plain HTML5 elements, but still have these elements participate in the JSF lifecycle and bind their values to the model using the expression language. And you can even enable AJAX by putting child components inside of the input text. Another reason why you might want to use JSF is because of the composite component feature. So a lot of times we'll have the same thing happen over and over and over again in our applications. And so this is an example in the upper left. Let's say I have a field where I need someone to enter in an email address. And this happens tens or even hundreds of times in my application. What I can do is I can declare a Facelet composite component, and right here I can have my input, type equal email, another HTML5 attribute for input. I can specify my validation, how it's going to be bound. I can put some validation in there against a regular expression. And then when I want to use it in my application, I can just specify it with one line right here. For example, example CC, input email, and then just provide my model binding right there. So this is a very nice way to encapsulate UI functionality and then reuse it throughout my application. Another reason why you might want to consider JSF is the third-party integration we have. So not only do we have a suite of components for Liferay Faces, which I'm going to show you in a little bit, we also have strong integration with prime faces, ice faces, and also rich faces. One of the nice features that's found in JSF 2.2, and I showed this off last year at DEVCON, is the Faces Flows feature. And so this is, if you have an application that goes from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 in a wizard type of interface, then you might want to use Faces Flows. And the great thing about it is that you can annotate a beam with @FlowScope, which is a JSF annotation, but it relies on CDI in order to manage the scope of the beam. So what will happen is if you, in your first view, in view 1, if you reference this beam with EL, then CDI will create it at the beginning of the flow, and as you progress and finish, the beam will automatically go out of scope. And finally, one reason why you might want to consider JSF is because of the Liferay Faces project. Liferay Faces is an umbrella project, and what we mean by that is there are many, many sub-projects underneath the Alloy project, the Bridge project, Portal, Util, Demos, and our new showcase that I'm going to be showing off. So collectively, if you take all of these smaller pieces together, that's what we call Liferay Faces. For the components I'm going to be showing you, there are 4 namespaces available. There's Alloy, Bridge, Portlet, and Portal. And these are all, what we tried to do is we tried to make the prefixes, make it very obvious which jar these components are from. So if you're using the Alloy prefix, that will be found in the Liferay Faces Alloy jar. If you're using the Bridge or the Portlet prefix, that would be in the Bridge implementation jar. Or if you're using the Portal prefix, that would be found in the Liferay Faces Portal jar. Try to simplify, because if you look at the Liferay JSP tag library, you'll see some are prefixed with Liferay UI, Liferay Security, and so on. So we have combined all those into a single namespace prefix, which is Portal. And best of all, if you use Liferay Faces, support is included with your Liferay EE subscription. So what that means is if you find a bug in any of our products, in any of the Liferay Faces jars, then under the Liferay EE subscription, we are obligated to fix it for you. The fix will, we will provide hotfix for you, or the fix will appear in the next major release, depending on your service level agreement. Okay, so before we look at the components, has anyone visited this site before? AlloyUI.com. This site is terrific. It shows you from a JavaScript perspective how to use all of the different JavaScript components that Liferay has developed as part of the AlloyUI project. Well, if you're a JavaScript developer, then this would be very familiar to you. Here's an example of how to do a date picker. So it's just a simple piece of JavaScript in order to do that. But if you're a JSF developer, then you're typically more of a server-side software engineer. Not always, but typically you're a server-side engineer. And writing JavaScript might not be your favorite thing to do. And so what we try to do is encapsulate a lot of this into just 1 or 2 lines of markup. So for example, here's an Alloy input date component tag. And we've tried to integrate it very nicely with the typical way that you would develop a JSF application. So here we have a date pattern attribute and a value attribute, which is bound to the model. And if time permitting, I'm going to show you a demo. First, we're going to go to the Liferay Faces Showcase. And I have it deployed locally right here. I'm going to try and use the local one if I can. Here we are, Showcase. So one thing I'd like to point out is this showcase here has components prefixed with Alloy, components prefixed with Portal, also with Bridge. But we try to divide them up into categories as to their functionality. Also, is anyone familiar with the stock JSF components that begin with H:? Has anyone ever used any of the H:? components? So for all of the H: components, we have equivalent Alloy counterparts. So for example, we have just a very typical one like button. And what we tried to do is we tried to show some of the typical use cases of how you would use a button in your application. And this showcase is built with Liferay Faces. Okay, we are drinking our own champagne with this. I used to say we're eating our own dog food, but say we're drinking our own champagne. So for example, right here, where you see the source code preview, this is actually right here, this is an Alloy tab view. And also an instance of the ACE editor inside in the read-only mode so that we can see the source code in this color-coded fashion. Lots of different components here. The data table right now is just in its alpha stages. We're going to be adding different features to it for filtering, lazy loading, and pagination, and so on. But the input components are pretty far along here. Right now we're in milestone 2 status. We hope to have our GA release in the first quarter of next year. So for example, here's autocomplete. And we have 2 examples here. So here we're seeing autocomplete in a server-side type of environment, type of scenario, but also in client-side as well. Okay. And so I was talking to Nate Kavanaugh, who's the Director of UI Engineering, and I was really excited about this because we're using this in the portal, and I said, well, when we go to jQuery, are we going to be maintaining this? He said, yes, we're going to maintain this because YUI had the best autocomplete of all the of all the JavaScript libraries that he had investigated. And so what we tried to do is in this showcase, if there's some type of input here, once you make a selection and you hit submit, then we use Ajax to show you what the model value is on the server. So if I hit submit, that just did a quick little post back to the server with Ajax. Source code is all available right here. And you can see the Java behind there and also the Facelet composition. Lots of different components. Here's the input date component. And what we've tried to do is we've tried to leverage the responsive nature of Alloy and Bootstrap as well as we're developing this. So if I were to take the browser here, I have to take it out of maximize state. If I'm going to shrink it down, grab the edge there, you can see that it becomes responsive. Okay. Or if I'm going to do a mobile application, same page right here with an iPhone emulator. It also has some progressive enhancements. So for example, if I want to select a date right here, I get the native date picker for the iPhone. So we're doing both responsive design with thanks to Bootstrap, but also where we can, we have progressive enhancement. There are lots of nice components in here. We have input file for file upload, which also supports multi-file upload. Input source code. This is an instance of the ACE editor. So down here, as we're looking at the source code, this is a read-only instance of the ACE editor. This here is an editable version where I can just type in some Java. That, submit. Okay, so if you ever need to do source code editing, lots of different languages supported. So anyway, I'm not going to labor this one, except for I'll show you one more. This is a portal component. It's prefixed with portal colon, and this is something that's very typical in a Liferay application, and we actually use this up here for the navigation. So if I shrink this down right here, you can see that the menu collapsed into this nav bar right here. Well, we built that into Liferay Faces as well. So here's a menu, and so if I shrink that down, you can see it collapses like that. So we've tried to make these components look like Liferay components. If you have a requirement where you need your UI or your portlets to look like something that comes out of the box with Liferay Portal, then Liferay Faces would be a good choice for your application. Okay, as I said, it relies on Bootstrap for the responsive design. It also works in plain web app. Okay, any of the components that start with the Alloy colon, they'll also work with just a plain web app. It doesn't have to be inside a Liferay Portal. If you do that, then you have an additional dependency, which is called Liferay Faces RESTlet, and that includes all of the JavaScript from Alloy inside of it. And I also mentioned progressive enhancement. We've tried very hard to reuse as much as we could. So, for example, with input date, it's a JSF component that extends from the standard HTML input text component. And then for actually rendering or for encoding the HTML to the response, we try and delegate as much as possible to the JSF runtime. So if you think about a date component, right? If we go back to input date, let me stretch it out a little bit here. Really, it's just a text box, right? But it also has a button, or it's a text box that's going to show it. So what we did is, for the rendering of the text box, we delegate as much of that to Mahar as possible. And that's true for many of our components. A good example would be under select, we have select star rating. So this is a star rating, and the rendering of this we delegate to Mahar, because really, if you think about a star rating, it's basically the same thing as a select one radio. So if I were to select the fourth one right here, and then hit submit, or if I were to go to select star rating, and then hit the fourth one, and then hit submit, it's really the same idea. It's just a different look for a select one radio. So we're trying to delegate that as much as possible. Okay, and we also have a demo here. I have 5 minutes. I'm going to try and do it as quick as I can. Okay, so I'm going to go over to Eclipse and show you an example for Liferay IDE. I'm going to create a new project here. New project. And it's going to be a Liferay plugin project. Hit next. And I'm going to call this DEVCON 3. I already made a DEVCON 1 and DEVCON 2 for practice to make sure it would work. And I'm going to select JSF, and I'll do Liferay Faces Alloy, and hit Finish. Now, the archetype that we have needs to be changed just a little bit. So for example, with Mahara, I'm going to have to upgrade Mahara to 2.2.6. 2.6 here, 2.2.6. For Liferay Faces, I'm going to have to change that from 324 GA5 to 420 M2. Didn't work. 324 GA5 M2. And also I'm going to have to add a repository right here. Since this is a preview, you'll find it in the Liferay Previews repository. So I'll take that and I'll drag it out to my server. And I'm going to sign in. And I'll just add a new page. Put it on its own page. And the portlet should be deployed now. There it is, DEVCON 3, add. Now, if you want to use this new version of Liferay Faces, then you will want to make just a few small changes. Here, we're no longer using the AUI prefix, it's going to be Alloy. I have about 1 minute left. I'm going to change that, and I'm going to change all the H colon to Alloy colon. Okay, like that. And that's pretty much all you need to do in order to get started. Real quick, I'm going to create a bean. And I'm going to call this DEVCON backing. And this will be an add managed bean. That is request scoped. Private date birthday. And I'll create some getters and setters for that. And just because we're out of time, I'm going to paste in just a little example here where we've got an Alloy field, a button, and some text. So let me redeploy this application. Okay, and if I reload the page, it takes advantage of all the color scheme from Bootstrap we get for valid or for invalid and things like that. So if I were to clear the field and submit, and so on. So again, by way of summary, with Liferay Faces, it's a safe bet because it's a standards-based technology, and your portlets are going to look like Liferay portlets, and we hope to have this ready by Q1 next year. Okay, do you have any time for questions?
Maybe a quick one.
Anybody have a quick question? There's one in the back.
Thank you for the presentation. As I understand, not all of Liferay UI tags from JSP is implemented in Portal, part of Liferay Faces. So is it possible still to use, for example, tags or category selection UI generated in JSP in Liferay in JSF application? Or we should wait while it will be implemented as tags in portal part of Liferay Faces?
Okay, so the question is, when you look at what we've done so far with the portal colon namespace, there's not a lot there. There's a handful that are there. What we're trying to do is we're trying to identify the most popular ones or the ones And we think we've done that. If you want one, and you think, or if you need a handful, and you think you need them as a very high priority, then contact us from the forums, and we'll try and get that into the roadmap. What we've done with the portal call namespace is basically we have JSF components that are actually invoking the JSP lifecycle of the Java implementation of the JSP tag. So it is a clear wrapper over exactly what's coming from the JSP tag. So we don't have all of them. We'll try and do the most important ones as fast as we can. We'll add more in the future. I think we're out of time. All right.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I'm available afterwards if anyone else has any questions. Thank you for